Canada and the United Kingdom share more than just a monarch. They share a historic bond. But what if the smaller but more populous nation turned on her ally? Well, it would be chaos. Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're taking an extended look into what would happen if the United Kingdom invaded Canada. Before we attack this question, I just want to ask you guys what you think would happen if the UK invaded Canada. Who would win the fight? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, do leave us a thumbs up if you like our war simulation videos. Also, if you've got any further suggestions for Life's Biggest questions, then let us know. Britain and Canada's relationship first began in 1759 when the UK invaded New France. Eventually, Canada became known as such in 1867, however it still remained tied to the mother country. Canada has been part of the British Commonwealth of Nations since 1931, where it remains today. The Queen of the United Kingdom is head of state in Canada, and paper Canadian money bears her image. Legally, the Queen is in charge of the Canadian government and could dissolve Parliament if she wanted to. Indeed, this happened in 1975 in Australia, so it's not beyond her jurisdiction. The Queen is also head of Canada's armed forces, although the ruling is pretty archaic. Nonetheless, traditionally, Canadians have chosen to fight alongside British troops, such as in the Boer War and the First and Second World Wars, being a specific help in the Battle of the Somme. So, what if we were no longer fighting alongside one another? What if the UK did invade? Well, my first question is, why? Right now, Canada and the UK are friends with a very good relationship, and our shared history more than unites us. What could possibly happen to turn two allies against one another? If the UK did invade Canada, I can't see it happening anytime soon. For starters, I think the Queen, who is usually apolitical, would step in. She wouldn't want war between her subjects. She feels very fondly towards Canada. Perhaps an invasion would take place in the future, long after the Queen has passed. Right now, it's uncertain how long the Commonwealth would hold without Queen Elizabeth II. She is the tie that binds. Many think the breakup of the Commonwealth could well happen in Charles's reign, maybe beyond. If so, it would make the invasion much less messy. Although, if Charles was pro-invasion and Canada was still in the Commonwealth, then he could simply dissolve the Canadian Parliament to cause instability. That being said, I'm pretty sure Canada wouldn't feel so great about an invasion, they'd just ignore him. What jurisdiction does he really have all the way across the Atlantic? Boo you, Charles. Before we launch into how an attack would even work, once again, we need to circle back to why. It just doesn't make any sense. What motivation would the UK have for invading Canada? The only reason I can see if the UK was the aggressor would be some years down the line if we needed natural resources desperately, or we ran out of space in the United Kingdom, both of which are actually possible. The UK currently has 65.7 million people living on just 242,496 square kilometers of land. Now Canada has 36.3 million people spread over a whopping 9.985 million square kilometers. So really, they have land to spare. Canada also has precious supplies of natural resources. For example, they've got oil, they've got timber, uranium, natural gases, gold, silver, copper, zinc, diamonds, and more. Perhaps either of these attractive attributes could cause the UK to throw caution to the wind and invade their friend. Of course, Canada could have threatened the UK in some way to cause a retaliation invasion. Right now, with Trudeau at the helm, that seems very unlikely, but you never know what political leader will run amok next in the future. So before we have a look at exactly how the UK would invade, let's compare a few military stats. The UK currently has 280,000 military personnel, with an active military of 198,000 people. Canada has just 88,000 military personnel, with an active member number of 64,000. Canada is also lacking when it comes to population and the amount of people fit for service. Right now, Canada could pool around 13 million healthy people, whereas the UK could recruit 24 million. As we know though, invasions and wars are rarely fought with manpower these days. The UK has 832 military aircraft, 5,371 armoured fighting vehicles, 227 combat tanks, and 76 naval assets. Compare this with Canada, who have 413 aircraft, 3,000 fighting vehicles, and 63 naval assets. The UK is looking a lot stronger. In fact, the UK is the 5th strongest military in the world, where Canada is pushing around the 25th mark. Let's also not forget that the UK has 215 nuclear missiles and Canada has 0. Nuking isn't the same as invading, but it definitely is still a lurking threat. So how would the UK even go about invading Canada? By boat? In the air? Would they approach from the east over by Nova Scotia or by the west by Vancouver? If we know anything from Hitler's failed Operation Barbarossa in World War II, you simply cannot fight a battle on two fronts. Canada is so vast, the terrain is rocky, the UK would need to pick a side of attack. If the British were going to go it alone, their best bet would be to enter from the east. Assuming the UK could rope British overseas territories into the fray, they could set up a number of bases in the Caribbean, including Bermuda, the Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, the Falkland Islands and more, who could all be there to help their eastern presence. In terms of a land invasion, the best bet would be through Nova Scotia and down through the St. Lawrence River, although I assume the Canadians would be expecting this. This is classic invasion maneuvers. I would imagine ahead of the invasion, the British Navy and the Canadian Navy would face off in a battle in the North Atlantic, with British firepower overwhelming the Canadian. As and when the British did make landfall, a successful invasion would involve crippling the country's infrastructure, so I imagine troops would blockade the country's rail system. The big question is, could the British do what they were never able to do in colonial times and reach the west side of the country? In my opinion, not alone. So, I think it's time to talk about other countries that could come into play here, especially the elephant in the room, the United States of America. Canada and the UK are both members of the UN and share the same allies. They usually play on the same team. If they were to go to war, something seriously wrong would have happened. The only way the UK could invade Canada with the necessary backing of its allies in the EU and the USA would be if Canada did something seriously aggressive, and I seriously doubt that they ever would. Even then, allies would look to a swift resolution. We are a bit above invasion in the 21st century. Well, some of us anyway. Except Russia, with the invasion of the Ukraine. But actually, let's talk about Russia, because while I imagine if push came to shove, the USA would definitely side with their upstairs neighbours, Russia could actually support the UK in order to develop their influence in West Europe. If Russia and Britain teamed up to invade Canada, it could actually be game over for the Canadians. Britain could focus on the east, and Russia could go around the back and invade to the west. Although, if it were USA and Canada versus Britain and Russia, Alaska would be an issue. A really big issue. The states would load up all their manpower and firepower to stop the Russians reaching landfall, so they may never even make it to Canada. How would the French feel? Would they want to get the UK back for winching East Canada from them hundreds of years ago? Also, would Quebec take the chaos as their one chance to fully declare themselves an independent nation? If so, the rest of Canada could well and truly be screwed. With the USA and Canada fighting Russia and the UK, with other allied countries nervously dancing about in the peripheries, honestly, at this point, everyone may need China to step in and collectively bang everyone's heads together. Ultimately, one first world nation invading another will never end well for anyone. But if the UK and Canada got into a bust-up, it could definitely mean World War III. So guys, that is one question answered for you there. Let me know what you think would happen if the UK invaded Canada. I, for one, really hope that it never happens. As you can hear, I am British, but I live over here in Toronto in Canada, and I absolutely love it. I've lived here since 2015, I now have permanent residency, and if we were to go to war, I'm thinking they'd send me home, but I don't know, maybe I'm Team Canada. I suppose it would also raise a lot of questions and feelings in the Canadians and British, who've always seemed to have a really good respect for one another. We just seem to like each other. Would the Canadians start eating bangers and mash? Or would the Brits start eating poutine? I actually do think there are a lot of things that we could learn from one another's cultures. Canadians are very accepting and cosmopolitan, but then they still pay with checks, which is just very confusing. However, I don't feel an invasion is the route there. Maybe we could just, sit down and have a cup of tea and talk about things. Before I go, I just want to answer a few questions that you guys left on one of my recent videos. What if Donald Trump married the Queen? Yes, it was ridiculous, but the human race didn't get where it was by avoiding ridiculous questions. Sometimes you just gotta go out there and be crazy. Sharish S wrote, that would be just so nasty. Yeah, I kind of agree, it would be really weird for everyone. Airplane plus Train Guy wrote, this is not so good for the two governments and the nation. The King Trump and the First Lady Elizabeth. Well, as we discussed in the video, that actually wouldn't happen. He could never be king, but she maybe could be First Lady. Either way, it would be a very, very confusing time for all of us, and I don't think anyone's here for it. TMR Media 69 wrote, this would be the worst day since 1939. Okay, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know, seeing as like the atomic bombs were dropped in the 40s. But it wouldn't be great. I'm with you. It wouldn't be great, but not the worst day. Sylvana Dill wrote, Macron is the one who has a thing for much older women, i.e. Oedipal complex. I think you mean Oedipus complex. But yeah, but at the same time, nobody bats an eyelid when a woman marries an older man, but when a man marries an older woman, everyone's up in arms. I think, you know, we need to even our standards here. Wales Santingo wrote, what if Trump married Putin? Good question. Maybe we'll answer it. I mean, at this point, we're not above it. And we also finally had one great video suggestion from Smithers Shankar, who wrote, what if mosquitoes became extinct? I think that's a very good question. So guys, there we have it. Once again, do let me know what you think would happen if the UK invaded Canada, and also let me know if you want us to do similar videos for other countries. Once again, we love your video suggestions, so if you want us to answer a big question here at Life's Biggest Questions, then let us know in the comments section down below. Also guys, if you like our content, make sure you like this video and share it with a friend. Also, why not click on that big beautiful notification bell to be the first to get big answers direct to your inbox. For now, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate. I'll catch you in the next video, but for now, stay curious, stay alert, and never ever stop questioning.